On suppression and its functions. Suppression is often thought of in negative terms. Suppression of information, of emotion, of liberties, of ideas, of truth. Does suppression have its positives though? I think that it inevitably does. As suppression eventually becomes oppression, what once was simply misunderstood and ill-noted becomes clearly heard and treated as sacred in a new sphere, the counterculture. Others call it the underground or the rebel instinct. Anyone may wind up possessing, or rather being possessed by, this instinct when suppressed in some manner. It is natural to lash out or express oneself in a manner as direct reaction to this pressure. On a side note, when I say that anyone may be possessed by this instinct, in the context of oppression, this may becomes incrementally more certain. This pressure and its reactions are, of course, inextricably linked. Now, again, even terms like pressure are too often applied negatively. Pressure is used every second in ways we could not live without, nay, exist without. To be rather blunt in extrapolating my existential conjecture into fact, pressure itself is the mechanism by which male zygotes, or sperm, are introduced to the female zygotes, or eggs. Cultural pressure performs in much the same way. It is an active mechanism which determines where and what upon the culture will focus its attention, energy, and force. Outcome, therefore, is influenced greatly, although not deterministically so, as there are always a plethora of Schrödinger-like variables at play, by the input, or ammunition if you prefer, of the herald. The heralds are those people, groups, businesses, and fronts that are listened to by a large segments of a state's populace. It has been shown throughout history that these heralds also have life cycles. They are born out of something akin to necessity. They speak plainly and openly, provide what truth they've found to their audience, which greatly values this and becomes disseminators of this information and knowledge. The young loudmouth then becomes relevant and influential. If they are wise, they view this as validation that their work and process is important enough to be continued. The young or minor herald effectively becomes representative of their audience's voice. In a culture seeing increasing unrest, these new heralds rise to challenge the old, established ones of the previous generations. They are at war with one another for the minds and souls of the people, and it soon becomes apparent, to those who pay attention anyway, which side is advocate for nuance and the individual, and which is in bed with uniformity, conformity, and the corrupted. Of course, among the old heralds, there will remain those dedicated to truths and the ideals they originally championed, though it seems they are often fade into relative obscurity. Being true, they often find it hard to maintain a mainstream appeal. Those lucky few that make it must decide whether to shun as they once were shunned, the chance at fortune and acceptance, as doing so is to cede a measure of legitimacy to their cause. Speaking unpleasant truths in the face of such pressure tends to get a person branded all sorts of things. It is therefore prudent to either ignore this or wear it proudly when in such company. Though, depending on the label, this may also be unwise, as many labels are not only misnomers, but nefarious pigeonholes meant to pre-represent one's views and or personhood. I write this as a warning to myself not to get cozy in the wrong company or under the wrong conditions. Don't get cozy at all. Stay sharp and remember to check both yours and others' ego and unconscious selves. It is easy to forget how much information gets transmitted non-verbally, after all, but it is there and active nonetheless.